They called us gods of the silver sky, but on the ground, we became less than human. My name is Arthur. Today, my hands are wrinkled and my steps are slow, but once, they were steady on the controls of a B-29 super fortress. We were young men, barely out of our teens, giving command of the most advanced bomber the world had ever seen. From 30,000 feet, the world below was a map of abstract shapes and distant clouds. We were untouchable, suspended between the blue of the heavens and the green of the earth, delivering a terrible fire from on high. We believed in our mission, in the righteousness of our cause, and in the strength of the silver bird that carried us. We never thought about the fall. Not really. The sky is a fickle master, and one day it let us go. Our story, the story of the B-29 crews who fell into the hands of the Japanese Empire, is not one you will find in the grand sweeping histories of the war. It is a footnote written in blood and whispered in nightmares. For us, the war did not end in a field of surrender or a hero's welcome. It began again in a far more intimate and brutal way, the moment our parachutes blossomed against the hostile sky. Japan had passed something called the Enemy Airmen's Act in 1942. It was a simple, chilling decree. We were not soldiers, not prisoners of war protected by the Geneva Convention. We were war criminals, and we were to be treated as such. Our fall from the sky was a descent into hell. The moment my boots hit the soil of a Japanese rice paddy, the abstract war became terrifyingly personal. There was no surrender protocol. There was only the rage of a people who had seen their cities burn from above. I saw my navigator, a good-natured boy from Ohio named Leo, surrounded before he could even unbuckle his harness. He was met not with rifles, but with bamboo poles and farming tools, a furious mob exacting its own form of justice. I was luckier, if you can call it that. I was found by soldiers. Their cold, disciplined cruelty was a different flavor of terror. They saw the wings on my uniform, not as a mark of a combatant, but as the brand of a monster. We were handed over to the Kempeitai, the military police whose name is still a shard of ice in my heart. Their interrogation centers were factories of pain, designed to dismantle a man, body, and soul. They wanted to know about the superfortress, about our bases, about our technology, and they would use any means to get it. I learned the anatomy of my own breaking point. I learned the searing pain of a bamboo rod across the soles of my feet, the suffocating panic of water being forced down my throat, the convulsive shock of electricity. Sleep became a forgotten luxury, a distant memory from another life. They would break you down, piece by piece, until the confident young aviator was gone, replaced by a terrified creature that would do anything for a moment of peace. From there, we were thrown into detention centers that made a mockery of the word prison. These were lightless, airless holes, crammed with so many men we had to sleep in shifts. The cold was a constant companion, seeping into our bones through the thin rags we wore. Starvation was the law of the land. Our daily ration was a small ball of rice, sometimes with a few weeds floating in a watery broth. We watched our bodies wither, our muscles vanish, our minds grow foggy with hunger. Sickness ran rampant: dysentery, beriberi, pneumonia, with no medicine, no doctors, no mercy. We were specters, haunting the edges of existence. Collective punishment was common. If one man was defiant, we all starved. If one man cried out, we were all beaten. It was designed to crush our camaraderie, to turn us against one another. But in that darkness, something extraordinary happened. We held on to each other. We shared our last grains of rice. We whispered words of encouragement in the dark. We held men as they died, promising to remember their names. The trials, when they came, were a cruel joke. We were dragged before a panel of officers, our supposed crimes read out in a language we couldn't understand. There was no defense, no evidence beyond the fact that we had flown a B-29. The verdicts were already written. It was theater, a final act of humiliation before the inevitable sentence, death. I watched my friend Leo, his body broken but his spirit somehow still alight, stand before them. He was condemned, and his execution was a return to a medieval age. Beheading. It was a fate so barbaric, so far removed from the modern war we had been fighting, that my mind could barely comprehend it. The horrors were not confined to official sentences. Many men simply faded away, succumbing to starvation or disease. We heard whispers of worse things, of prisoners taken to medical facilities, like the infamous Unit 730, and used for vivisection experiments, human beings treated as lab rats. In the final desperate months of the war, as the Japanese mainland itself began to starve, the most unspeakable rumors circulated that in some isolated garrisons, starving soldiers had resorted to cannibalism, preying on the very prisoners they were supposed to guard. We were not just the enemy. We were a resource to be consumed. When liberation finally came, it felt less like a victory and more like waking from a coma. The American soldiers who found us were shocked into silence. They saw not the proud aviators from the recruitment posters, but skeletal figures with haunted 1,000-yard stares. The war was over, but the battle inside of us was just beginning. For decades, I was pursued by the ghosts of that time, the faces of the men who didn't make it, the echo of screams in the interrogation room, the gnawing, inexplicable guilt of being the one who survived. Why me? Why not Leo? The question echoed in the quiet hours of the night, a debt I felt I could never repay. In the years that followed, the world learned the truth. War crimes tribunals brought some of the perpetrators to justice, and the horrific details of our captivity were entered into the historical record. But justice is a cold comfort. It cannot erase the scars, and it cannot bring back the dead. So why do I tell you this story? Not tell it to inspire hatred or to dwell in the darkness of the past. I tell it because the most profound light is often found only after acknowledging the deepest dark. The men I knew, the gods of the silver sky, were stripped of everything: their planes, their uniforms, their dignity, their lives. Yet, in the face of absolute inhumanity, they held on to their humanity. They shared, they cared, they endured. Their spirit was a flame that could not be extinguished by torture, starvation, or the executioner's sword. My survival was not a random act of fate. It was a charge given to me by the men who fell. My purpose became to live a life worthy of their sacrifice, to build a family, to cherish peace, to speak for those who were silenced. The lesson is not in the horror they faced, but in the strength they showed. It is a testament to the fact that you can cage a man's body, you can starve him, you can break his bones, but you cannot destroy the resilience of the human spirit. That spirit is the true superfortress, and its memory, its legacy, is a light that no darkness can ever truly overcome. Remember us. Remember that even when falling from the sky, a man can choose not to be broken upon the earth.